Hi everybody, Josh Gerben. I hope this video finds you safe and healthy. I want to go over the 3 things that you should be doing right now for your law firm to survive the coronavirus pandemic.
Welcome to the Josh Gerben Show, because law school didn't teach business.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Josh Gerben Show. This is our quarantine edition from my home office. We don't have the usual video and audio equipment, so I hope you bear with me today. But I wanted to put a show out about the 3 things that I think law firms should be doing right now to handle the coronavirus. Look, if you're in a leadership position in a firm, if you're running your own law firm, the last few weeks have been an absolute gut punch. I'm recording this in early April. Our family is in the midst of the 4th week of our quarantine and stay at home here. And it's been a huge challenge, right? I mean, there's nobody that's unaffected by this. And the one thing that the first few nights, this all broke in March, when it really became obvious we were going to have a problem. I'll be the first to admit, I didn't sleep well for multiple nights. There's a lot of uncertainty. You have health concerns about your immediate family. You have concerns about your business and what's going to happen to the economy. All these things are running through your head. And it just can be hard to kind of really just let sink in. But at this stage, we've all had an opportunity to let it sink in. And like most things, once you get your head around it, or once it just sort of becomes the reality, now it's about how do I handle the reality? And there's a phrase the Marines use, and of all things, my mom has used it with me over the years. And that is, if you have any problem, what are you going to do? You're going to improvise, adapt, and overcome, right? Because what's the alternative? What's the alternative? We're just going to sit back and let this thing kick us around? No, we've got to do something about it, right? And so every morning when I wake up now, instead of sort of almost dreading like, oh my God, we have to deal with this again today. Is this a bad dream? Is it over yet? Now, that was the first few mornings. And I'll be honest, that's just where I'm sure a lot of people were. But now that we're into this and we know what we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future, the 3 words that I let enter my brain space in the morning are improvise, adapt, and overcome. What am I going to do in my firm to improvise, adapt, and overcome the coronavirus pandemic? I want to leave the pandemic stronger than we came into it as a firm. It's a bold goal, but I'm determined to make it happen. So how are we going to do it? All right, here's the thing. You've got to start somewhere. And I think my list of things that I'm going to do to improvise, adapt, and overcome is going to change, if not weekly, daily at this point. But these are the 3 things that I'm starting with. The first is I am becoming obsessive about client service. The second is that I'm working harder than ever to nurture leads and make sure they're followed up on. And the third is I'm actually pouring more money into marketing and advertising than I normally do. So let's go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. The first, I think, is probably the most important, and that's becoming obsessive about client service. So the reason we want to obsess about client service right now is that your clients depend upon you, and they depend upon lawyers in their life to be basically backbones and rocks. And you need to be there for your clients right now. So when an email might have done before, it's a good idea to pick up the phone and just check in on how someone's doing. We do trademark work, right? We don't do anything health related for our clients, but every client's business is affected by this. Every client's personal life is affected by this. So when I get an email from someone, it's an opening for me to give them a call and just check in, see how they're doing. Let them know they're not alone. Yeah, I'm doing the same things they're doing. I'm stuck at home. I have 3 kids. What are we doing about it, right? It's an opportunity to build relationships with people that you might not normally have had, right? And so take advantage of that opportunity to build those relationships and be there for your clients. People are going to remember who was there for them in the tough times. And that may mean laying off the billing a little bit, right? It may mean that, hey, look, if you're going to have a conversation that's 30 minutes, maybe you don't bill the whole 30 minutes because you're not talking about legal matters for the 30 minutes, right? And so you need to be there for folks and, don't be there for them in the sense that they're paying you more money to be there for them. But I think making sure that you're taking care of your clients and being on the phone with people is just so important in a time like this. The first couple of weeks, and even now, trickling into this week, We have some clients that are very concerned about, money and funds and things like that, and I get that. And that's the other thing. You just have to give people comfort that, hey, look, we can push this a little bit, right? And push it as much as you can. You mean push work forward, or if there's a retainer that hasn't been fully used up, maybe they're going to want it back. You're going to have to be able to do that right now. You want to make sure that you're just on top of people's financial concerns as well. So that's what we're doing day in and day out. I've instructed all the attorneys in our firm to make sure you're picking up the call, make sure you're being sensitive about any money-related issues, super sensitive about those, and just getting back to people as quickly as you can. Make them know we're here, make them know everything's okay. And that's where we're at with that. Now, the second item on my list is making sure that we're nurturing leads. Now, there's just not as many people contacting us as there was a month ago. That's going to be a fact of life for a while. So we have to do a better job of nurturing these leads. And admittedly, we're not always the greatest at it. A lot of people call and email us on a daily basis, and sifting through that and getting back to everybody is a very challenging thing to do for us. But now, we're making sure that, hey, we're getting everybody a phone call as quickly as we can. We're getting everybody an email follow-up, and then a couple of days later, more email and phone call follow-ups. We're not just letting things sit and waiting for people to come to us, which is really the luxury we had pre-coronavirus. Now we need to make sure we're following up with folks, make sure, because everybody's very busy, right? That's the other thing you have to remember is like everybody's super busy right now because they maybe have additional childcare responsibilities. Maybe they have, they're just trying to get, their business, or the ship righted at, at home with their business. And there's so many things that they're trying to handle. So you may have to follow up them a little bit to push those legal matters forward, especially if it's in the nature of a lead. So that's certainly something we're working on a lot right now, and I encourage you to reevaluate how your firm is handling leads. I'm personally jumping into a lot more of them than I usually would, just to try to keep that pipeline of work coming as much as we possibly can. Now, the final item on my list is I'm actually doing a little bit of running into the fire. We're spending more money on advertising now. And that's a little controversial, only because I know some people are pulling back on advertising budgets. And look, I get that. At a certain point, if you're really not able to service clients, or clients aren't coming in the door at all, you may not want to spend a lot of money on advertising. But there's still work out there. I can tell you, we've been taking in new work, daily over the last 30 days, and it continues, and the world continues. So if you're not going to spend money on advertising right now, you're going to shut down your avenues for new revenue. And that could be a very dangerous cycle, right? So you want to be very careful about saying, oh, the world's pulling back. There might not be as much work out there. I shouldn't advertise. Well, yeah, you may get less work from the advertising you're doing, but as long as you're making money still and having cash flow, that could be reason enough to leave the advertising run. We're still fortunate we've got a good amount of work going on, but if things were to dry up, the idea is, hey, look, as long as we can keep the lights on and keep enough work coming in to keep the lights on and keep people here, we'll be fine. We'll make it to the other side of this. And part of that is making sure your advertising is still going out there. If you just shut yourself off from the world, you can expect your revenue to dry up as well. So I hope you found these tips helpful. Again, I think it's so important that everybody think of these 3 words every day: improvise, adapt, and overcome. How are you going to handle this pandemic? How is your firm's relationships going to grow with your clients through this pandemic? How are you going to come out on the other side of this ready to hit the ground running when people are back at work? We're going to get through this. There will be another side of this. I've had an opportunity in my life now. It started with 9/11, when the world seemed like it was ending. In 2008, when the world arguably was ending again. And now, here we are in 2020. The thing that the first 2 major crises of my life, if you will, the 9/11 attacks and the 2008 financial meltdown taught me, is that if our country is going to be here in 2 years, there will be an economy. There will be people working. There will be work to be done. And life will continue. And the chances of everything continuing and us seeing on our side of this are nearly 100%. So if you go in it with that, and you just know that we have to make it through some hard weeks and months ahead, you just have to find a way to improvise, adapt, and overcome during these times. And there will be good times again. Good days will return. That is a guarantee. How you handle these times is going to be crucial to your relationships with your clients and folks in your firm when we do get back to those good days. So just do the best you can, improvise, adapt, and overcome, and we're going to be all right. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Try to do a few more of these from our quarantined location here at my house. Again, thank you for bearing with me. In the comments here, please let us know what your firm is doing to improvise, adapt, and overcome in the current crisis. I think if we could share tips about what we're all doing to just get through, whether it's business tips or even mental health tips for how to handle everything on a daily basis, it would be incredibly helpful. So please, please, please leave a comment. Even just email me if you have something you'd like to share. josh@joshgerben.com. I'll share some of the tips that I get in during the next episode. Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Please stay home, and I'll talk to you soon.